Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Nicole with Made from Scrap. I'm going to be doing the tutorial today that is for the Ireland Forever project that I did, which you can take a look at my other video. It's a walkthrough of this 8.5 by 10-inch album, and it has 4 pages in it with pullouts. So let's get going. Again, this is the paper collection. It is called Ireland Forever. It's exclusively made and available through countrycraftcreations.com, and it's 24 sheets of double-sided 12 by 12 paper. So I'm going to be using today for the tutorial some craft cardstock, also available at Country Craft Creations. I pulled out a new stack, and it comes with 25 sheets. I think it's only going to take us 21 sheets, so I took out 4 and left myself with this 21 right here. And what we're going to do is go ahead and cut through all of our papers. We're going to label them and with some sticky notes, and hopefully this works out where we're using the 21 sheets, because I tried to sketch it out to make the most of our paper and be conservative with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut the paper and we're going to label it, and I'm going to start with my first sheet, and we're going to cut that at 9 15/16, which is 1 notch just before the 10-inch mark. So here's the 10-inch mark. We're going to go 1 notch just before the 10-inch mark, and that is 9 15/16. The other way that some people doing paper crafting says is just short of the 10, just a hair short of the 10, and you got 9 15/16. So that's our first cut. The second cut, we are going to rotate the paper. Go ahead and pull this over. We're gonna rotate the paper, and we are going to cut off 4 inches. That's going to be our first one, and this is what we're going to label as item F. Stick it right on there. Then our next cut is going to be rotated the paper back, and we are going to have a measurement of 9 7/16. So that is just 1 notch before the 9.5, or just short of 9.5. Okay, and we're going to rotate the paper back again, and we're going to split this in half. So it's the 8 inches is at the top, and we're going to cut it at 4 right down the middle. Okay, and now you have those 2 pieces that are both the same in length and width, and those we're going to label as A and B. So out of that 1 sheet of 12 by 12, we have 3 pieces. You can see one that is just a little bit longer than the other. That was the first one we cut. And then we have these other 2 pages. So we have A, B, and F so far. Okay, we're going to set those aside and get another sheet of paper. And we are going to go ahead and cut this one at 10.5. 10.5. Last one's going to be labeled as page C. Okay. We're going to grab another paper. We're also going to cut this at 10.5. And this is going to be labeled as page D. D as in dog. Okay. Next sheet, we're going to go ahead and get, and it's going to be a couple of cuts here. So we're going to cut this one at 5 1/4. 5 1/4. And then we're going to take that 5 1/4 sheet, and we're going to label it as page E. set that aside. It's going to be 5 1/4 by 12 inches long. Okay. We take the remaining piece from that and we're going to turn it so that the 12 inches is at the top of your board. So we're going to cut it at 6 inches. Okay. So now you have 2 pieces there. Get where to place my ruler. There it is. We're looking for 6 3/4 in length by 6 inches long. So those 2 pieces become V and W. Okay. Put those aside. No. Okay. Next page we're going to get, and we are going to cut this one at 5 1/2. 5 1/2. And we're going to turn that 5 1/2 page this way, and we're going to make sure that it is 9 7/16. 9 7/16. That's just before a 9 1/2. Okay. That one is going to be labeled as page G. G is in giraffe. The remaining larger piece from that original page, 6 1/2 inches wide by 12 inches long, and we're going to turn it and we're going to cut it down to 6 3/4. So 6 3/4, and we want the page to be 6 3/4 by 6. So we're going to cut a 1/2 inch off. So make sure you end up with 6 by 6 3/4. And that page we are going to call page X. Okay. Next. And just make sure to put all your trimmings over to the side, because we will use those, or some of those, for some of the inserts into the album. Okay. Next page, you're going to cut down to 9 1/2, and then you're going to rotate it 90 degrees, and we're going to cut it at 9 inches. And then we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. Let's see. Nope, sorry. Then we're going to cut it at 4 1/2. So you're going to end up with these 2 sheets, these 2 pieces anyway. And these are going to be labeled as T and U. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to make 4 cuts, and this is going to be an 8 by 10 1/2 inch sheet, so we're going to have 4 of them. So we're going to make the first cut at 8, 8, and then 10 1/2. Turn it that 90 degrees, cut it at 10 1/2. And this is going to be L. We're going to do this 4 times. So 8. Turn it 1 time. 10 1/2. It's going to be M. That was the second one. It's going to be the third one. So 8. 10 1/2. last time. 8 by 10 and a half. It's going to be, oh, no, there's 4 of those cuts. Okay. Now we are going to cut at 9 and a half. Now we're going to rotate it 1 time. We're going to cut it at 8. And that is going to be H. I'm going to pick up that drop piece, which measures 4 by 9 and a half. And we're going to rotate that. We're going to keep the 4-inch width, and we're going to make this at 8 15/16. So the one mark, the small mark just before 9. Okay. And that we're going to label as Z, zeta. We're going to do that 3 more times. So again, cut at 9 and a half first, rotate 1 time, cut it at 8 inches. We will label that as I. Pick up the drop piece. We're keeping the 4-inch width. So we're going to trim this down to 8 15/16. 1 mark just before 9. We're going to label this as AA. 2 more times. 9 and a half. Rotate it 1 time. Cut it at 8 inches. We're going to label that as J. Pick up the drop piece. Keep the 4 inches. Cut this down to 8 15/16. We will label this as BB. One more time. 9 and a half. Rotate it 1 time. Cut it at 8. We will label this one as K. Pick up that last drop piece. Keep the 4 inches. Cut the length down to 8 15/16. And we will label that as CC. Next sheet. It's going pretty well. Next sheet, we're going to make 2 cuts, and we're going to do 4 of these. So we're going to cut this down to 8 inches. I'm going to rotate it 1 time, and we'll cut it to 9 1/4. And we're going to label this as P. The next ones are going to be Q, R, and you guessed it, S. Those are all going to be the same. So we're going to make the 8-inch cut first. Rotate it 1 time, 9 1/4. It's going to be Q. 3rd time, 8 inches. Rotate it 1 time, 9 1/4. That's R. Last time, 8 inches. Rotate it 1 time, 9 1/4. That's our S. Getting down to the bottom of our stack. Okay, take 1 sheet, And we are going to cut it at 6 3/4. 6 3/4. Rotate it one time. And we're going to cut this in half. 6. So you're going to end up with 2 sheets, or 2 pages here that are both 6 inches by 6 3/4. And those are going to be labeled as Y and E, E. Okay, next page, we're going to cut at 7 1/2. We'll rotate it one time, and we're going to cut it at 9 7/8. That's 1/8 shorter than 10. And that is going to be labeled as D, D. One last page. Yep. Okay, this one we're going to cut at 6 inches first. Now we're going to rotate, and we're going to cut at 6 3/4. And this one we're going to label as F, F. And the large drop that you had that was 6 inches by 12 inches, we're going to call this the folded insert. Okay, that's our stack. Let me do some cleaning up here. Move this off to the side. And you can see these are all of our cut pieces that we can definitely use throughout the book with decorating, making our ephemera pieces, our matting for small things. So I'm just going to set those aside. Okay. Sticky notes came in handy. Make sure you can see this. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take a minute and put these in alphabetical order. I'll be right back. I forgot one page, so now we're at 22 pages. The last page we are going to cut at 10 1/2 inches. And then we're going to turn it one time. We're going to cut it at 6. And then each of these pieces you are going to cut the length down to 5 1/4, which is half of this size. So 5 1/4. 5 1/4. So you're going to end up with 4 pieces that are 5 1/4 by 6. And those we are going to label as G, G, H, H, I, and JJ. Those are our last pieces. Now we have our stack. Okay. Let's pull out the scoreboard. Okay, those are all our pieces in alphabetical order. So, starting with A. This is the pocket. A and B are the pockets for the front and the back cover, inside front and back cover of our book. And we are going to make a long pocket. So what we're going to do is we're going to score on the short end, which is 4 inches, at 1/2 inch. And then we're going to rotate, and we're going to score on the short and on the long sides. Now let me say that again. It's 4 inches. That's the short side at the top. We're going to score at 1/2 inch. We're going to rotate it, and we're going to score on each end of the long side, which is just short of 9.5. And we're going to make a 1/2 inch score on both sides. So you end up with something like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut off those corners. Just like that. Okay. So you're going to take your scissors and cut those corners off. Just like that. Okay. We're going to do that with both A and B. So again, you're going to make a 1/2 inch score on one of the long ends and both the short sides so that it becomes a long pocket. Where the X is, you're going to cut that corner off at a miter. Okay. And you're going to fold, garnish all of those score marks. Set those aside. C and D are the cover wraps, so we are just going to set those aside. E is the spine, and F is the spine cover, so we're going to set those aside. We'll do those at the end. We're just going to do all the scoring right now. G is the hinge. So G, you're going to put the 5 inches at the top. We need to move this little paper first. And we're going to score at every 1/2 inch. So we're going to score at 1/2 inch, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, and 5. Again, that's 1/2, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, and 5. So it is literally every 1/2 of an inch. Okay, the whole length. So what we're going to do is start with the end, and we're going to fold that towards the back. And you're going to fold in the opposite direction so that you end up with a hinge. The next 1/2 inch is going to be the gusset. So we're going to leave that one there, and we're going to fold the next score line towards the long side of the paper. Okay, let's manage this paper till it suits boss. So now, we folded that first one. We're gonna glue it, we're gonna end up gluing it together. This is gonna be the gusset. So now it comes up. Now we'll fold this one back down like this. And we'll glue that together. That becomes a gusset in between. Okay? Just make sure that your paper is straight. Line it up on the edges here when you're burnishing. Okay, you can do it this way, a little pinching. Next one. Fold it back and forth. Burnish it really well. Tell it who's boss. Okay. I think this part is easier if you can see it. So we're going to end up making the hinges like this. Okay, see how that is? We'll glue those together, and each of these will become the hinge. So let's do some gluing. This is the Art Glitter Glue. It is very, very good glue for paper crafting. I love using this. It dries very quickly, but it does give you a little bit of time to work with it. Get me out of burnishing. Use my Yucky mat because I always get glue outside. So that was the first two pieces. We've glued that together now. Now I'm going to glue the next ones together. Okay. Some glue in there. Stick it down. Burnish it really well. Next one. Very last one. Okay. Put it over there. See how fast this glues? All right, so now we have, this is our hinge, has our four hinges that we're going to be gluing to the center of the book, and this is what our page flaps, this is what our pages will be connected to, be glued onto. Okay, so that is our hinge. You want to work them both ways, burnish them really well. Okay, that is G. Put that back. All right. Let's move on here. Okay, H. Move on. So H is one of our base pages, and this is not going to have any scoring to it. So actually H, I, J, and K. You're going to set those aside. You're going to take out L, and L should measure 8 by 10 and a half. And we're going to score on the 10 and a half side at the top, a 1/2 inch off of both ends. So I like to rotate all the way around and score on both ends. This is going to be the base page. Okay, do it one time here. We're going to go ahead and burnish. Burnish both ends. And we're going to do that 4 times. And the sheets that we just put aside is H, I, J, and K. This is the other part to our base page. So once you have those 2 flaps, this is where we're going to glue I and H down. And we'll glue them down, and it makes the tube for our base page. Okay? So I'm going to fold all these first, and then I will glue them all at the same time. So I'll do this 3 more times. Put your 10 and a half inch is in at the top, and score at 1/2 inch on both sides. Okay. 2 more times. In. Both sides. 1/2 inch. 1 more time. O. Twist it. Okay. We've done that 4 times. I'm going to burnish these. Bring that back. This is messy. I'm always messy anyhow. Bring the glue back in. And we will glue the top part of that flap. If you'd like to put the page inside, you can. And just put the glue on the inside instead, or your score tape if you prefer to use it. I just typically put it to the inside. That's so that when I mat my pages, I usually leave a border, and I don't want to see the flap. So I'm going to put some glue on the top of that cover, at the top of that flap in my case. And let's stick this down. And just make sure you're straight on the sides. And make sure you burnish well. So now you have your tube. And that was H. And we're going to do that another couple of times. So, here's our glue. And by the way, if you find that your cut was just a little bit off, like mine is here, I'll just trim it. So I'm really not worried about it. Just make sure that you're straight, at least on one side. Okay. So that you can trim it very evenly. Move it on the side. That glue allows me to move it around a little bit. Okay, that's the next one. I'm going to trim that off, just that little edge. Okay, that was just the tiniest of little pieces. So, next two. Last one. Okay, we have 4 base pages now. We have our hinge, we have our 4 base pages. We're going to close up our glue. Okay, now we're going to move on to P. So P, are the pullouts. So we have 4 pullouts because each of the 4 pages are actually pocket pages. So I used my envelope punch board, and you can choose to use, you know, some other decorative punch if you like, or there's another option that you can cut your paper a 1/2 inch shorter and then add a tab if you like. Some folks have something like this, a punch that is a tab. You can use a circle and cut it in half. So many different options, but this is the way that I did it. So I used my envelope punch board, and what I did is I went by the long side of the paper, which is the 9 1/4 inch side, and I stuck that in. Let's see, Nicole, what did you do? Here we go, the 1. Okay. All right. So I put that in so that the edge of the page line up at the 1. You can see there's my 1. It's right at the edge, and I'm just lining it up with the 1. And I'm going to punch that, and then I'm going to push the paper edge down to the 2.5 inch mark right there, and I'm going to punch a second time. Okay, so again, start the 1, punch, move it down to 2.5, punch. And if you want a longer tab, by all means, make it longer. You could have done it 1 and 3, or 1 and 3.5. Actually, that may have been what I did in my book before, but nonetheless, it is what it is. I've done it. Now you end up with the 2 notches if you're using your envelope punch board. And what you can do is use your trimmer where you can see through it, and you're going to put your blade right down in that notch. Scoot your paper over until it hits the blade, and then you're going to cut the edge of paper off, okay? Just make sure you've put it all the way in the middle. So that when you cut the whole thing off. Not like I did the first time. Okay. And you're going to start on the other notch. Make sure you shove your paper all the way over. Get straight on the edge, and then cut off that piece. And then you're going to end up with your tab. Again, the other way that you could do this is cut it off a 1/2 inch shorter, and that way you can just add your decorative element to it. But this is the way that I did it, and I'm going to go with that. That's P. The other thing that I did is I staggered the notches. So instead of starting at 1 for my second page down, I started, at another 1.5 inches, I think it was, different. So in this case, I'm going to start at 2.5, and I'll punch, and then I'm going to move it down to 4, punch, and that's going to give me my second notch. Again, then I'll put it in the cutter, and I'll do that. And then I just repeated, so I'm going to start over at the 1, punch, and do the 2.5, and punch, and then I'll start at the 2.5, punch, and go to the 4. And so these won't line up exactly. You can see that notch lines up, but once I cut these out, the tab will show right behind. So let's do that. This punch board is a handy tool. Let's do that. So I'm going to stick this down, shove it all the way over, make sure it's straight, make sure it's all the way in, slice it off, back up to the other side of the tab, slice that off, okay? Now you have, oh, let's see, I didn't cut that one, duh. You have both of those. I'll do this one next. A little patience. Go into there. Make sure it's straight. Come up to the top tab. Now you have to figure out your machine, your cutter. This is how mine works, and you can see that is how they'll line up. And then for the other ones, I turned it around so you can see the next one will go right here. Okay. Line it up. off. There you go. Turn it around. There are my 4 tabs. Now, if I had 5 sheets, then I would have the next one in the middle, but this doesn't bother me. You may see that little piece right there that I didn't get off, so I'll just use my scissor. It's paper. Okay, so those were our 4 inserts. Put that aside. Punch board up. Don't need that anymore. T. Moving on to T. T and U are going to be our gatefolds on the front page. So you're going to put your 4.5 inches in at the top, and you're going to score at 1/2 inch. And you're going to put your second one in, your U, 4.5 inches at the top, and score at 1/2 inch. Push those down. Okay. And these are going to become our gate right here. In my book, I put an embellishment on the front of it that had a magnet on the back side of that embellishment, and then I put a magnet on the right hand gate so that it would hold it closed. But that's your gate. Okay, T and U. Now we'll move on to V, W, X, and Y. Those are going to be, for some of our pages, those are going to be flaps. And those should measure 6 inches by 6 3/4. And I'll show you what that is. So this is going to be these 4 flaps right here. Okay. So this 6 3/4 inch measurement is going to be the horizontal measurement. So we're going to make sure to turn it. With 6 3/4 inches at the top, we're going to score at the 1/2 inch mark. And we're going to do that 4 times. So V, W, X, and Y. Burnish those. Those are those flaps. Z, AA, BB, and CC are all going to be pockets. So these are going to be the double stuffed pockets. So we're going to take 2. We're going to take 2 of them, and we're going to score along one of the long sides at 1/2 inch. We're going to score both of the short sides at 1/2 inch. Okay, so again, 1/2 inch on 3 sides. And that's going to be 2 short sides and 1 long side. And then you're going to miter those corners just like we did the inside cover pockets. Okay, we're going to do that one more time. I want to do these first because I'm going to show you how we're going to do the double stack. So again, we'll cut off the corners. cover, burnish really well. Okay, we have 2 pockets. Okay, there we go. Okay, our next 2 are going to be pockets that slip inside because they're double pockets. So what we're going to do is we're going to score at 1/2 inch, and then this is just short of 9, so we're going to come just short of 8.5 and score on this side. And then what we're going to do is we're going to rotate it onto the short side up here, and we're going to score at, no, I scored at 1 inch. And I'll tell you why. Because when I did my pockets, I used a punch for the edging. So, let's see. Use a different one this time. So, when I do my pocket, if I punch out the top of the pocket, then I'll be able to see through. And what I want to do with this second sheet is I want to cut out these corners. See that? Cut that out, both sides, straight up from the bottom, and then angle down just a little bit. And we're going to end up with this and this. Okay. Now, when we fold over those flaps on the side, what you're going to do, this is going to be your bottom pocket. Where we scored the 1 inch, you're going to slide that down to that line. It gives you a guide as to where you need to be so that your double stack pockets are straight. And the other thing that this does is this allows for this secondary pocket to go all the way down to the bottom and not stop short, okay? If you wanted to stop short, you could just fold this over and make it another pocket. It will be a little bulky here, but again, I use that 1 inch score on the bottom because I had done a punch on my page. Just show you. So here is the pockets. And what I did is I used this right here. So I wanted to make sure to tuck my second pocket down far enough to where it wouldn't be showing right across this border punch. So let's do that one more time. This is the insert pocket. So we'll do a 1/2 inch on each of the short ends. And a 1 inch on the long end. I'm going to cut out straight from the bottom up to that score mark and then miter. Cut up from the bottom to that 1 inch score mark and then miter. And you're going to end with your 2 flaps on either side. Let's burnish those down. be able to tuck that right inside there and get it straight. Okay. All right. Getting down to the end. We are on page DD. And page DD is this large flap page. It is the 5th page of the book where we have this tab on the side, and it's this large flap. And then inside we have 2 pages with a magnet closure. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. It is this flap, this large flap with a tab on it. Open it up, and you have this double page that has a magnet on it. Okay. So DD we're going to put with the long side at the top, and that's 9 7/8 at the top, and then we're going to score at 1/2 inch. Okay, and then burnish. That's your flap. Okay, if you want to punch the edge, you need to punch the edge. I did not on this one just yet, but I did in my Ireland Forever. Next you have EE and F, and those are going to be the inside flaps. So you're going to put your 6 3/4 inches at the top, and you're going to score at 1/2 inch on both of them. And then burnish. And those are going to be your lap. So this will flip up, and then these will right here. Okay. So wait to get the glue out. We have the insert that's here. So you're going to put the 12 inches at the top, and you're going to score at 6 inches, right in half. Burnish that. That's the folded insert. Okay. Last thing you have are the vertical flaps, and we're going to stick that in our scoreboard with the 5 1/4 inches at the top, and we're going to score at 1/2 inch, and you're going to do that to all 4. Burnish all 4 of them. Those are our 4 long pockets. I'm sorry, 4 long flaps. So that is going to be on this page, and they mirror each other. So we'll have 2 flaps on the left and 2 flaps on the right. Okay. All right, put that away. Now, come back to our stack. I put mine upside down each time, so I have the stack every single one. A at the top, I put it down after I folded it, burnished it. So the last ones that we had E and F. You want to lay, and DD. You want to lay DD down so that your folded flap is up towards you. It's folded up towards you. And then we are going to put these EE and FF with its flap so that the fold will go along the edge. And what would be the back side, okay? The edge, but you want to leave space down at the bottom. So I'm leaving, let's leave about 1/2 of an inch at the bottom. Okay, and we're gonna glue that down. So we're gonna glue this flap. To about 1/2 inch from the bottom, and the folded edge will be right at the edge of that long piece. So you have about 1/2 inch at the bottom. This would allow the flap to actually maneuver a bit. And then you have your flap from the large page at the bottom. So actually, if you did this, show this paper who's boss. Okay, you have your first flap on. Now we're going to do the opposite side. So we're going to align that fold. Fold your 1/2 inch down. We're going to put glue on that back side, and then we're going to stick it down on the page and align the bottom of FF up with EE to be straight. So let's go ahead and put some glue. Line that up with the outside edge. Line that up with the bottom of EE. Make sure you're straight. You have that art glitter glue, so you're using the time that you have to wiggle it around and get it straight. And burnish it down really well. Now open this back up and burnish it down really well. Okay. So we have those that close just like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to use our magnet. So I use the basic gray magnets that are very small. But those are available at Country Craft Creations. And I am going to put one. Now these two overlap quite a bit, so I just want to put one pretty much in the middle. And the other one is going to go right on top of it so that I know which side to place together so that they're not opposing. Okay. And personally what I do is I pull out my score tape and I tape that down. And then I'll place some other score tape on top of that with the sticky side up. And I'll put my other magnet down or let it hop right on. And I close this and rub the sticky from that double-sided tape right on it, and then I have my magnet right in place. And that's how I do the magnets. Okay. Alright, so that was on the bottom of our stack. Well, let's grab all those. Let's turn it over. And let's go to CC. and E. Oh, I'm sorry, CC. Let's go to C, D, and E. That's what I should have said. So these are going to be our covers. Now, we needed chipboard. We're going to use our chipboard. So I've got my chipboard out. I've already cut it, the chipboard, but I have two pieces that are 8.5 by 10. If you don't have score tape on a roll or the score tape sheets, I highly recommend that you get it. It is a game changer as far as doing your covers for your albums. It makes it so much faster to do this. You just roll it out, put it right on, lay it down, cut it off with your knife there. So much better than doing glue, I find, or doing your multiple layers of score tape, which works really well. I've done a lot of it, but this actually goes, you can see, so much faster because, I don't know about you, but making the book is not usually my favorite part. It's the decorating. That is my favorite part. So I want to get to the decorating. And this is a tool, right? The score sheets and the roll that let me get to the decorating faster. Now I have my spine piece left. It in just a second. One last piece. Just like that. That's done. That's done. The knife away. Give it a little bit of a burnish. The air bubbles out. Sorry for shaking. Camera. I need to look into getting a camera that's not on my table, I guess. Okay. Pull your scoreboard back out. Okay, let's make this super easy. I'm gonna start with C. We're gonna get out our nifty spacers, available at Country Craft Creations. We're going to use our spacers here. Put your paper down. Put your spacers down. Those are 1-inch spacers. Okay. Take your backing off. See how much faster that is? Sticky side goes down to the paper. Use those spacers. Push up against it. And push your chipboard down. Okay. First one done. Next one, D. Set it down on the scoreboard. Put your 1-inch spacers. Grab your chipboard. take off the backing. Sticky side down, push up to the spacer, those spacers, push down, perfect alignment both times. Last one, this is for the spine. Take out your 1-inch spacer on the side, put in your 1.5-inch spacer. Make sure your paper's all the way to the corner of your scoreboard. Still have the 1 inch at the top. These are available at countrycraftcreations.com. Again, it's another tool in your toolbox to help it go faster, make it fun. Take off the backing, sticky side down, push up against your spacer, push it down, burnish it well. How fast it was. Take your spacers out. That's a good tool. That's a very good tool. Okay, next thing we're going to do, we're going to work the spine. So we're going to bend the end of the spine over the chipboard, burnish it. Okay, we're bending it all the way around. Bend that paper all 4 sides. Make sure you burnish. Last side. Bend it over. Burnish it really well. Here's what we're going to do. Once you've burnished all 4 sides, stick mine down with the chipboard down to the table, and I'm going to push my bone folder up against the edge. Okay, you're making that paper hug the side of that chipboard. Do it on all 4 sides. That's going to help you get a nice square edge. There you go. See how it hugs the chipboard? Really help you get a nice square edge. Now, don't rip your paper. You're just basically kind of stretching the paper a little bit. It's fibrous. But now we've gone around all 4 sides. Here's what I do. I come up the bottom, so I'm going to flip it over so you can see the chipboard. I'm going to trim up from the bottom, and then I'm going to trim off the side. So you're going to take out the rectangles on all 4 corners. Okay, so I'm going to trim it up like this, and then I'm going to trim it this way. Just like that. All 4 corners. That's how I do mine. You may do yours different. I find this works just very good. Don't need to be all fussy about it. Okay, now how do I know it's straight? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap these around, and you can see whether or not you're hanging over or not. So then I wrap the other one around, and just like Tamara does, then I'm going to place my scissor up against the edge of the chipboard, and I'm going to snip off that edge. Now when I wrap it around, that will be straight, but don't tuck that in. Just wrap it around. Okay, same thing on the other side. Let's see if it's going to be straight. That's good. Wrap this one around. That one might need to be trimmed just a little hair. Turn it over, put my scissor against the chipboard, and just a hair cut that off so that it's straight. Now this is what it looks like. Okay. It's maybe better to see against, don't know. corners out. Okay, all 4 corners. Get your glue. Back with the dirty mat again. Get out your glue. We're gonna glue along the edge of the chipboard and your bottom and top flap only on the spine. Now you're gonna pull this flap up towards the chipboard with your bone folder right behind. Push against that chipboard. Let the glue start to get into that chipboard. Then wrap that around the chipboard like this. Pressing down, pressing the glue into the chipboard. See, I told you I'm messy. Just get your little paper towel. Your Viva paper towel is fine. Doesn't have lint on it. It's lint-free version. And if you're not worried about it. If you're not, sometimes I just wipe it with my hand. Okay? This is crafting. We get dirty, we get messy. There you go. Use your bone folder. Press the paper up against the chipboard. Let that glue soak into the chipboard, rubbing that backside. Then keep folding it over and pressing down at the same time. Really push and burnish that paper into the chipboard. Okay? All your edges. Leave those 2 side flaps. You need those. Let's move on to these 2 pages. This C and D. We're going to bend all 4 of the edges down. Let me put my glue, cover my glue. As I left it open too long. Okay. Put that back on. Let's see, that's fine. All right. Burnish all the edges. This doesn't have to be a long process, but still, I want to get to the part that we're doing the decorating. I'm going to notch out all 4 corners. All 4 corners. It's going to be a square because we used a 1-inch spacer on both sides when we were doing our chipboard. Putting it down. Just those sides. Make sure they're straight. Put your scissor up against the chipboard. Make sure it's straight. At least it's not hanging over the edge. Anyhow, okay. Here we go, last 2 pieces. Put your glue down at the bottom against the chipboard. And then glue all of your flaps. To clean out my glue bottle now. Use your bone folder, press up against that chipboard. Let that glue soak into the edge of that chipboard, and then keep wrapping that paper down, pushing down. There you go. Next one. Okay, let me pause this. Back. Much better. I went ahead and refilled it too. All right. plenty of glue now. Oopsie, that's all right. I better to hold it with, my dear. To those two edges. Push against that chipboard. Roll it over the edge of the chipboard. Left side on this cover. Voila, that one's done. Last one, I'm going to speed this up for you all. Stop.
Still video?
Yep, one's done.
Okay, let me get a shot.
Okay. Can you turn the fan on?
Huh?
Can you turn the fan on? Voila. C, D, and E. Okay. Back to our scoreboard. Lay the spine down. Okay. And then you're going to take, which one do you want for your cover? Doesn't really matter to me. The other thing that I do, should mention, is I go ahead and I like my corners to be kind of burnished down. So I do that. All of them just where that edge of the paper comes and meets the side of the other one. Okay. Like I said, spine down, so the chipboard is down, the flap's open, okay? You're gonna line it up to the top of your scoreboard. You're gonna take your cover, and the way that I do it so that I lay it down on top like this. Now, if you like to do it the opposite way and lay your cover down and then your spine, you really need to flip it over the other way so that you can see that you're maintaining space in between your spine chipboard and your cover. And you can do it that way. One last thing I want to mention is the same thing that we did before. You want to make sure that you've trimmed this at least so that it's straight. If not, just a little mitered, because you don't want that to hang over at all. So I'll get those out of the way. Okay, I personally like to do it this way because then I can see a little bit more of a gap in here, and I just make sure that both the spine top and the cover top are lined up using my scoreboard, and then I slide the cover back and forth to give me the adjustment that I want as far as the spacing in between the cover and the spine. So I take my glue. Some people might again use score tape on this. I don't prefer the score tape because I prefer all the glue. And what I do is I leave that space towards, close to the spine piece, and then on my cover I will put the glue right along the edge. See, I'm not very straight, but it doesn't matter. Okay, as long as you don't go over. Again, line it up, and then line your cover, the top up, and then you can use the top of that scoreboard to make sure that you're straight, and then slide it towards your spine piece, making sure that you've left a gap in between the two. So I have more than, this is a little bit wiggly, I have more than that spacer is in width. Okay, I want to make sure to burnish. Flip it over and burnish that really well. Okay, that's going to hold your book together. Okay. Next side, I'm going to line this up on the scoreboard. Okay. I'm going to use my glue down here to the outside of that flap. Leave some space up against the spine piece. And then I'm going to glue right along the edge here. Turn that over, line it up against the scoreboard and the top. Come down with it. And make sure you leave that gap. Leave the same amount. I'm just eyeballing it, but you can leave that same amount as you have on the other side of that spine. Sit down and make sure to burnish. Turn it over. Burnish it really well. Okay, here's your book. What I'd like to do is put that scoreboard off to the side and then remember how we push along the side of that spine, and do it again. Okay, and what I do is I'll pull this page up, or this side of the cover up, and then I'll press down right against it, gently making a fold, making that space that is in between the two covers, between the two chipboards. And then I will use the sides as a guide, and I will push down. Basically, I am working that piece of cardstock that's a gap in between the chipboards to round it off. That's what I'm doing. So, just working it a little bit over and burnishing it again, and it's basically rounding it off. And I'll do it off with the other side. Gently at first. And you want to push it back this way. Hold it straight against the edge and burnish this down. Okay. Push it back this way after flipping it over and burnish it down. That's your book. Put together your book. You can figure out what you want for your cover, what you want for the back. You may want to label your cover and say that's up. I know a lot of people do that, so that they're not wondering later on which side is up for their pockets. Okay, but our spine piece, the 4" by 9 5/16. That is piece F. That is used right here to cover. So I do use a little bit of score tape on this, so I can get a little bit closer to the edge without that glue necessarily seeping out. And then I will use glue as well. Just make sure it's straight. I'm just eyeballing it. I want to make sure that there's even amount of space on either side. That glue lets you do a little bit of wiggling. Okay, not too much, but a little bit. Okay. I want to burnish it. Then you want to do a similar thing where you get to the edge and you use that bone folder to make that paper hug that edge. Okay. And you're going to gently work the paper into the groove. Okay, bringing that book page up a little bit at a time. And we're going to do it on the other side. Work it along the edge of that chipboard. Working it up a little bit at a time. Okay. Now I use the glue. And I just put it on the edge here. Work it into that groove. Work it into the groove. Okay, lay it down. And let that glue take hold. Okay, that groove that you did just gives it a little indent and just helps in, it's not going to stay in there, but it helps that when the book is moving, the covers are opening and closing, that the paper has been trained to know where to go. Okay. So you end up with that little dent and it moves very freely because the paper knows where to go. It's been trained. Okay. All right, we're back to A and B. A and B were the pocket fronts, flaps, okay? Now if you like the look of doing the pocket first and then putting your page matting in, that's what I do on these, because I like for the pocket to be smooth going in and out. You know, your inserts going in and out of the pocket and not catching on these if I can. So I will put these down first. That's A and B, that's on the outside. And I'm not going to be punching my edges. If you wanted to punch your edges with a decorative punch or something, you know, this is the time to do it before you glue it down. Decide that now because you want to probably match it throughout the book. But make sure your pocket is on there straight. Burnish it down really well. Next one. Doing good on time. One down the corner first, line it up on the edge, on the bottom edge, push it down. A pocket, B pocket, done. Well done. Next, G, to be the top of your stack. G is your hinge, remember. Okay, you want to make sure to fold them all down in one direction. Then we're going to glue those 3 gussets, not the 4th one. Make sure the hinge is wrapped around so that you don't put glue on it. If you want to put tape on it, be my guest. I like the glue. Much more forgiving when you first put it down. But what I do want to tell you is if you're putting this down and you want to decorate your page, you want to do that now. And of course, I forgot. So, I'm going to do that. I'll be right back. Okay, magic of television. I'm back. I picked out and selected my paper. I cut it down. I measured it because the way I do it is I mark it with a pencil on the page. I slice it down. I ink the edges. I use vintage photo for mine. Now I'm going to glue this decorative element down. And I'll go back to the hinge. Now, you should also be thinking about what type of closure do you want on your album, because you want to do that before you have already decorated the front of your album. But if you're like me, you want to think about what's going on the front of your album as far as the paper is concerned, so that you can set that paper aside or go ahead and cut it out and put the paper on there, so that you don't use it somewhere and just wait to do the decorating part. But now we're back to the hinge, and I like to fold one side over in and then the rest of the hinges down, so I can kind of see where this hinge is going to lie. You know, we're human, they're not always straight. We try to make it as straight as possible, and you can fudge the pages when we put those on to make sure they're straight. So hinges may not be perfect, as long as they function, that's what matters. We're going to try to eyeball the center of this, top to bottom, left to right. We use the glue, and it gives us a little bit of wiggle time. Sorry, my head is in the way. And then we're going to press this down. Those many air bubbles out. I'm going to fold all the hinges over to one side. I'm going to go ahead and burnish the heck out of it. We'll open up one of those. We'll open up the next one. Burnish it. Open up the last one. Burnish it. We'll fold over the final one. We'll burnish it. We want these to easily maneuver back and forth, because we don't want our pages to be hard to turn. Okay. There's your hinges. Now your base pages. We already did the tubes. Okay. You can do a dry fit if you like. And put it right on there. The hinge should go right inside of the base page. And it should be a snug fit. Okay. But what you can do is, when I said you can fudge the page, you want to make sure that, first of all, your base page, the edge of it does not go all the way down to the bottom of the hinge, because that will prevent your page from turning very easily. The second thing is, you want to make sure to pull it off of that inside part of the hinge to make sure that you have enough wiggle room to maneuver the page and line up the bottom so that it's straight with your book. Look at the top. Is it straight with your book? If that's where you want your page, then that's where you will glue. Now, You don't have to make a huge mess with this. Okay, but do have your paper towel at the ready. Because if you're anything like me, you're going to use it. But you just glue it right down after you've made sure that your page was straight at the bottom. I always do that last page first. I find it's easier to eyeball it that way. And then this way you've got that first page on. When you do the second page, you can line that right up with the bottom of the first one. So again, a little bit of snug fit. Make sure it doesn't go all the way down to the bottom though. Align your page with your second page with the first one you have down. Go ahead and put some glue in there. In between the hinge and the inside of that base page tube. Sorry, wiggling that camera. Turn the page over. Go ahead and put some more glue. Book in a day. As long as you can get through your decorating. It usually takes me a little while, but like I said, I like to do the book, get it out of the way, because for me, the decorating is the fun part. So this one is gonna give me a little trouble. Let's teach it who's boss. I'm going to just snip off a little bit of the edge. Don't snip down to the edge all the way to the seam, because you don't want to see that. Just snip off the very corner of it if you have to, because that will allow the hinge to get in your page anyway. So see, like I just did. Oh, I have here glue. So line at the bottom of your page again. Make sure you're not all the way down the hinge, because you want that space to actually maneuver your page. Okay, flip it over. Put some glue on the inside there. Burnish, burnish, burnish. Okay. Last one. Okay, I'm going to show it who's boss. Again, just snip the very corner. Don't snip all the way down. See that? Just the very corner, not all the way down. Just the very corner. That should allow you to actually fit your page on. Okay. Make sure we're straight, not all the way down to the edge of your hinge. But you want that space to be able to actually turn your page. Glue in there. pages, all in the book. Your inserts are next to go in. Those slide right in. Okay. Just turn it back to the front. U and T. Those are your gate folds. Just going to go right on here. Should fit. They'll close exactly because you cut them out of the same piece of paper. So you want to make sure to line up the outside edge. And you see that flap? You're going to glue that flap. So that it's right along the outside edge of that page. Line it up front and bottom, at the front and bottom, the top and bottom. Burnish it down. The next one is the T. Glue the back side of that flap. Line it up with the bottom and make sure you make it snug up against the first flap, okay? Allow yourself to use the glue time, the glue dry time, okay? So that those should match up exactly. You can open them up from there. Now, remember, on this page, you need a magnet here if you're going to do it the same way that I did on the other one, because remember I added an embellishment and it had a magnet on the back side of that embellishment right here. The back side there's a magnet, and on the front side of here there's a magnet. Okay, so you still need that magnet. Next page, turn it over. You're going to have the 4 flaps. You're going to have V, W, which are going to go like this. And you can tuck it the other way. This is how I did it. I line up the bottom. Okay. Put glue on the outside of that flap. I'm going to line up the bottom and outside edge. Make sure that's straight. Press it down. Burnish. Burnish, burnish, burnish. Next one, put glue on the outside of the flap. And then I'm going to line up that folded edge and the top of the page. Sorry to get in the way, but make sure that you leave enough space so that this first one can maneuver without getting bound up on the second page. So basically you want to have that fold just nestled up against the fold line, the bump of the fold line. And that's your 2 pages on this side. I'm going to do it again over here. Bottom first, because I'm making them mirror each other. I'm doing the bottom first. If you want them to be, you know, opposite, then you might want to do the top first, but I'm doing the bottom first. Line up the bottom of the page, line up that outside edge, make sure you burnish well, open up the page flap, grab your next one, do the outside of the flap, nestle it up against the bump of that flap, that fold I mean, and make sure you align with the top of the page. So again, leave space next to this bottom one to allow it to maneuver, to function. You can nestle it up against that bump, but you don't want to be on top of it. You want to be right next to it. Burnish. That will fold in, and that will fold in. Burnish. Burnish. Page 2, page 3. Next one, double pockets. So you have the bottom pocket as AA. Put the glue. All 3 flaps. Align the bottom outside corner. The outside corner. Outside of the page. Corner, and give yourself more space on the inside, on the spine side. Make sure you align to the bottom of the page. Then press down, burnish all 3 edges. Tuck yourself down in there. Make sure you don't have it sticking. That's no fun. BB. BB has the 1-inch score line that gets tucked in to that bottom pocket, and that helps you align it. So you're going to glue those 2 edges. And you're going to make sure to stick it inside the pocket. I'm going to push it down all the way until that line is no longer showing. Make sure you align that outside edge and press down. If you're aligned here and on the outside edge, you should be able just to press down on that inside. Burnish really well and burnish really well. It's basically a tucked in belly band. Okay, this makes it a double pocket though, where it can go all the way down to the bottom here instead of stopping short. So now you have 2 pockets. Double pocket. Burnish really well. Okay. That's that one. All right, this right hand side, we're gonna pick up what we already did. This is the large flap. Okay, what I want to tell you though is if you place this down, what I did is I made sure to have space on the left and on the right side. So I centered this flap. That's up to you. If you want to put it all the way to the outside edge, you can. Gives yourself some more space in here. I just like it to be centered. I'm doing everything symmetrical. So I'll take this DD and we'll put some glue on the outside of that flap. We'll make sure that the fold is lined up with the top part of the page, and we'll center it left to right. And you can always look at the bottom as well and make sure you are straight. If you wanted to use a border punch, just a reminder, I should have reminded you a minute ago with these double pockets, but time to do a border punch if you want to do it. It gets harder if the paper is already on the pages, so each of these you want to do a border punch like I did before. Okay, that's that page. Next page. Last thing to be done, the other double pocket. So we're going to put the bottom pocket on, put glue on all three edges, and all three flaps. Go ahead and line up that outside bottom corner. Make sure the bottom of the pocket is straight. And then you can press down that center portion. So you want to burnish that outside edge and that bottom. And then press down on that center piece. Nice and straight. Here we go again. This is the pocket that slides in. This makes it the double pocket. So you have that 1 inch, and see how I'm doing the dry fit? It's a little bit snug. It's probably because I have a little bit too much extra. In there. So it wasn't letting me go in. There you go. Okay, so I'm gonna glue. Show it who's boss. It's paper. Not the boss of me. Okay, I have that 1 inch score line at the bottom, which I'm lining up. And then I want to line up the outside edge here. Press down. Make sure that score line is straight across the bottom. And then you can press up on that inside portion. So remember, that's a belly band, so if you wanted to do that punching on the edge, that was the time to do it. Alright, last page. We have GG, HH, II, JJ. These are the vertical ones. We're doing a similar thing where we're going to do the bottom first. Outside of that flap, you're going to glue it, stick it down right to the inside edge of your page. Make sure you line up that bottom real good. Straight. And burnish. Open it up and burnish. Glue the next outside of flap. Now we're going to align with the bump and the top of the page. But remember, don't go over or on top of the bump. Be nestled up right against it. And again, if you want to do border punch, do the border punch. It's going to be harder to do it as it's attached already, if it's attached already. Next one. Nearing the end, guys. Your book is almost completely made. Outside, bottom, because I'm mirroring it. Line the bottom and line the outside. Press down. Burnish. Open it up and burnish. Last one. By the way, when I'm making my book, I don't use the sticky notes, but I just use a pencil and pen and mark on my page. Because, you know, you're going to cover it with beautiful paper anyhow. Line up that top, line up against the fold, do not go onto the bubble. Just nestle it right up right next to it. Okay, make sure these close. Tell it who's boss. Folded insert. There's your folded insert. That's it, guys. That's your book. Completely made. Completely put together. Here's your book. Ready for the decorating. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you had a good time. Use your scraps that we cut out and make some pretty inserts. And happy crafting. Join it. The CCC group, the Country Craft Creations, and make sure to come back and visit me at Made from Scrap. I am on not only this YouTube channel but _Made from Scrap on Instagram. You can follow me there, and make sure you get your beautiful papers from Country Craft Creations, as well as the artisan cardstock that is lovely to work with. Happy crafting. Bye.